Welcome back to FHIR and 5. We're up to L now, so a fair way through our series. And I thought we should look at life cycle of resources within FHIR. So a number of resources in FHIR contain status codes, and it changes the meaning of the FHIR resource data based on that particular status. So I think it's important that we talk about how those life cycles work and what the impact is and how it's shown within FHIR. So there's the link to the life cycles page within FHIR. Definitely have a read. It goes through a lot more details of the various statuses that are used within FHIR resources and how those life cycles map through a process within healthcare. But just some examples. I mean, the various status codes might contain things like planned, in progress, cancelled. They could just be active or inactive, true and false. There's a whole raft of different statuses that drive behaviour within certain FHIR resources. And I just picked out some examples there. The encounter status, certainly if we're recording things like an ED attendance that's happened or is currently in progress, we'd have a status of in progress. If it was something that was going to happen in the future, so we might have a pre-admission where the actual admission's in the future, we might have an encounter that has a status of planned. And so that's changing the behaviour of the meaning of that particular resource. So it's another example, service request. So if we're thinking about things like referrals, might have a status of draft or on hold or in progress or active. Flag status, so capturing things like patient alerts, could just simply be an active or inactive. So lots of different resources have had these status codes that change the behaviour of the resource. And we just need to take a little bit more care on how we deal with the data that's coming through in those resources. Alongside life cycles, I like to think of modifiers as well. So when you're looking through the FHIR spec, and I know when I looked at it the first time, I didn't pick up on this particular flag inside each of the FHIR resources, but you'll notice against those status codes. So if you looked at encounter.status, you'll see a question mark, exclamation mark against the field, and that just means that this particular field is a modifier, meaning that you really need to understand and utilize the value that's in here, because it's going to change the behavior of the resource and the data that's held within it. So if we know that we've got a planned encounter, we might want to show that differently to an active in progress encounter. If it's cancelled, you might want to strike it out inside your user interface. But by having that modifier, we need to interpret it. We need to take it into account when we're looking at that particular data. So some data in our FHIR resources may have been put there by another application, and the server's going to bring it back. And we as consumers of the data may not want to know about that particular field because it doesn't get used in our user experience. But a modifier, you really need to make sure that you're using those and taking those into account, and making sure that you're displaying the information correctly to the user. You know, if they were deleted or entered in error, you definitely want to show those differently than something that's an active record. So really thinking about the life cycle, so the statuses that particular FHIR resources will go through, and then making sure that when you're picking up those FHIR resources from an encounter or whatever FHIR resource you're working with, checking to see if there's any of those modifier flags against the fields, meaning that different values in there are going to change behaviour of the resource, and just being careful around what you do with those statuses when you do see them.